So let's get started. We're still in the first chapter. Here are the three major components or major costs of any manufacturing company. We have direct materials costs, direct labor cost, and factory overhead cost. That's all there is. And I abbreviate this by DM, DL, and FOH. DM, DL, and FOH. And here's examples of them. The direct materials, the direct labor, what I'm paying for this guitar to be assembled, and then the factory overhead. So every cost can be broken down into one of these costs. So here's how you know if it's a direct material cost. Here's how to know to classify it. Anything that was a direct materials cost is what we call an integral part of the finished product. Without the wood, I would have no guitar. So that does become a direct materials cost. Also, it has to meet both of these conditions, a significant portion of the total cost of the product. Okay? So here's some examples down here of direct materials based upon different cost objects. Tires for an automobile. Without tires, the car is not moving, going very far anyway. The cost of electronic components for television. So this is how to know if it's direct materials cost. It has to meet both of these characteristics. Okay, let's look at direct labor cost. So the same thing with direct labor cost. In order to know if it's direct labor cost, it has to meet two criteria. It has to be an integral part of the finished product and also a significant portion of the total cost of the product. Typically, direct labor costs are labor costs for anybody working directly on the cost object. And here's some examples down here. So now we covered DM and DL. Let's go to factory overhead, or FOH. Factory overhead is everything else. There are only three costs in this whole semester: direct materials, direct labor, factory overhead. So if it doesn't fit in the DM or DL category, it's going in here. And here's some examples of factory overhead. Now, there are some examples of materials and labor that actually are not direct. They're indirect labor and indirect materials. Okay? Remember, they have, in order to be direct materials or direct labor, they have to have both of those characteristics. But for example, the oil, the cost of the oil to lubricate machinery, and the wages of my supervisory employees or my janitor is indirect labor and indirect materials. That's what they're called. Indirect labor, indirect materials. So if they don't meet the criteria to be direct, they're indirect, and all indirect goes into factory overhead. Okay, so next we have some more cost we're going to move to. Hope I'm not moving too quickly. Prime cost and conversion cost. Okay, again, we're going back to the DM, the DL, and the factory overhead. They're grouped into two different things. Prime cost are direct materials and direct labor, always. Conversion cost are direct labor and factory overhead. Now, wait a minute. Yes, direct labor is both a prime and a conversion cost. So a conversion cost is what it costs to convert my materials into that finished product. So just so you know, these are prime and conversion costs. Let me give you an example, a little drawing example. Here's my here's my prime cost, and here's my conversion cost. Again, direct labor fits into both categories. We have a few more costs to go over we need to get through. So product cost and period cost. This is only for financial reporting. Product costs are always only my manufacturing, which is my DM, my DL, my factory overhead. Period costs, think of them as my selling and admin. And if you took financial accounting, you remember G&A, general and admin costs. So selling expenses are anything incurred with marketing and selling my product. Admin is everything else except my manufacturing of the product. And here's a little chart to help you understand this. Okay? These are product cost, These are period cost. And I have one more slide before I finish this one. Actually, two more slides. Sorry about that. Product cost. So this is important to know. As product costs are incurred, they're recorded on the balance sheet as inventory because they're material that I'm buying. When I sell them, they become cost of manufactured, and then they're put on the income statement. So just pay attention that period costs are only on the income statement as an expense, and they never appear on the balance sheet. So I'm almost done with this section. Here is probably the best way. This slide is probably the best slide to use to understand the difference between product cost and period cost and what financial statements they go on. So this concludes this video for these different costs.